Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and for today we're just going to jump right in, and I'm going to start by cutting up this melon. Oh, I didn't even tell you what I'm making. We're going to be making a meatloaf dinner today, and I want to do a side of winter squash, so I just cut the melon in half and I scraped out all the insides, and then I will set those aside. Once I'm done, I'll put them both in a pan, and I'll put in about a teaspoon of olive oil into each one, followed by adding in some butter to each one, again about a teaspoon, and then I will just massage that around the whole entire squash, and this is going to help it stay really tender while we cook it. And then I'll just season it with some salt and pepper and then put it in the oven. Once we have our squash in the oven, we're going to move on to the onions. So how to cut onions in a really simple way is to make slices, as you see, going lengthwise towards the root without hitting the root, because that's going to help keep your onion intact. Then make some slices going across the onion, and then we're going to make slices going widthwise, and that's going to create your dice. Over to the stove, I just have a large skillet over about a medium-high heat, and I just heated up some olive oil, and then I'll add in the onions that we had just diced up, and we're just gonna let those sweat it out for a little bit, and just make sure to stir it constantly throughout the process. But while that's going, we're gonna start to peel some potatoes, and that's pretty straightforward, you know, just peel your potatoes. Then we're going to go ahead and dice all of our potatoes. You can do about a 1-inch dice. We're going to fill the pot with water, and then we're going to set that on the stove and let it boil. Once you boil it and you can get a fork to go through one of your potatoes really easily, then your potatoes are done and you can drain off all the excess water. But as those are boiling, we're going to move on to the meatloaf portion of the meal. So I just got my ground beef, and I'm just going to break it up a bit just so it can fit more nicely into the bowl. And then I'm going to bring over those sauteed onions that we were doing earlier, and I'm going to add those to the bowl. Along with the onions, we're going to season our meat with some salt and pepper to start. And then we're going to move on to our breadcrumbs. So I used about a cup. I kind of just eyeball everything, but for those of you who like measurements, I'd say go in with about a cup. And then I followed that by using 2 eggs. I'm using a really large amount of ground beef. So if you're using one of those smaller packages, I would say just use 1 egg and about half a cup of breadcrumbs. And then I'll go ahead and I will season it with some rosemary and some parsley. And I put in a little bit of garlic powder and some Worcestershire sauce, and I used about a teaspoon Worcestershire, I don't know, pronounce it how you like. And then I followed it up with a little bit of brown sugar. I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons, and then just go ahead and get your hand, get all up in there and mix it on up until it's nice and evenly combined. Now, taking a glass dish, if you don't have glass, just use a metal one, it'll still work the same. I'm just gonna spread it out and then flatten it just using my fingers and the palms of my hand so that it's nice and even. Then I'm gonna go ahead and poke holes in the meatloaf. This is gonna allow for some of the juices in the meat to fill in those poked holes, and it's gonna help keep the meat really tender, but it's also going to allow for our sauce to soak in. So I went in with about a half a cup of barbecue sauce, a half a cup of ketchup, some honey, and I used about 2 tablespoons, followed by about a teaspoon to tablespoon of apple cider, and just about I'd say a tablespoon of sriracha, and I mixed that up. But this was not enough for me, and I ended up going back and making like a double batch of that because I didn't have enough to cover my meatloaf, and then I used some more later on, so I would suggest going in and making about double the amount that I just said. Then I just placed that in the oven and I let it bake at 350 for about an hour until the juices started to run clear and the ground beef started to pull away from the edges of the pan a bit. In the meantime, I'm going to drain my potatoes because they're done, and I'm going to finish off the mashed potatoes. So I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of butter, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I'm going to put in about half a cup of sour cream. I'm pretty sure I put milk in there, but I guess I must have accidentally deleted it. But just put in about a quarter of a cup of milk as well, and then go in with your potato masher and mash all of that up together until you get a nice smooth consistency in your mashed potatoes. Although if you like them a little chunkier, then I would say don't be so thorough with your mashing. But once I was done with that, I set it aside and everything was done. So with my meatloaf, as you can see, there was some oil on top. I basically just used a spoon and I scooped it off. I added on a little bit more of our barbecue sauce, and then I just put it back in the oven on broil for about 3 to 5 minutes. Keep a close eye because that broil can get away from you. And once I was done with that, our meal was complete. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that it inspired you to cook as well. And if it gave you any inspirations for other recipes you'd like to see, please leave them in the comments below because I love checking them out and making them if I can. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time. Bye!